Good morning, Denise Dryden here. I'm out in Edmonds, Washington today because I've got class all day, so I'm cuddled up next to this little tiny creek, and you can hear it in the background. There's train tracks, so you can hear the trains go by, and the birds are chirping, so it's just a magical little combination of things in this place that make it fun to broadcast this video. So today I want to talk about, are you a reader? And this is kind of an appropriate topic for today. So, I just last weekend before, drove from Boise to Seattle. And I'm, going along through northwestern Idaho, eastern Oregon, then into eastern Washington. And I realized that I'm on I-84, which is the Oregon Trail. And so as I'm coming up the hill and going down into Baker City, I'm realizing this is the Oregon Trail. This is what it looked like. This is where the trails were, and that the highway is exactly on top of what the trail was. And I notice as I'm looking around, I sort of defocus and I look at the hills and the drainage and where the river is, and I go, this makes sense. This is exactly where that trail should be. And it dawned on me that I'm really good at reading environments. Not as good as one of my friends is, who can read where the rivers used to be, where the glaciers cut it, but I can read environments, and I was paying attention to that, and this topic sort of came in and laid itself down. So I also spent the last 5 days listening to the Evolutionary Empath Global Summit. There are 30 presenters, and a lot of them are my colleagues and friends, and some of them are, I've been holding their books and using them. And so it was really beautiful to listen to 30 different kinds of presentations about sensitivity, about empathic skills, about being energetically reactive and what that is. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to weave those two together, which is, how are you a reader, and how does that pertain to being energetically sensitive? Okay, so what I came up with were some traits that are consistent straight across the board. Any of the presentations you listen to, anything that you understand about sensitives and empaths, is that they're observant. They're really observant. They don't always want to observe, but they're incredibly observant. That they can focus. You can bring their focus completely in and hyper focus on what's in front of them, and then they can blow out and not be able to focus at all because there's too much coming in, whether it's overwhelm or it just isn't interesting. There's a lot of what captures our attention and what pulls it back. Curious. Such curiosity, like, I wonder why this is happening, or wonder why whenever this happens. So curiosity doesn't have to be positive. It can be cause and effect, but it's curious. There's this inborn ability to keep asking questions. That they see, feel, hear patterns in cause and effect. Makes sense, right? That the sensitive, the energetically sensitive, is always looking for ways that things are lined up, things are repetitive, cause and effect. If I push this, this happens. If I do this, this happens. And they focus on the external, what's out there, because most of the time that's what's been coming in steadily, at us, right? On us at all times. If the world would stop doing this out there, then but it's an external, focus, which makes sense. So I believe that these are forms of reading, that the way that we pay attention, the way that we're curious, the way we're observant, means that we're taking information in at all times. So I'm going to call those reader skills. Elaine Aron calls them the DOES. I'm just saying that this is just basic reading skills. And I wonder if it's a natural trait that we all have, that's been buried sort of deep inside and is starting to come forward as we nurture it. Like, what if we're all readers? And it's just a matter of how we hone this skill. Is it something we are intrinsically good at? I'm also noticing that the more unstable, erratic, traumatic, survival issue based our lives are in our childhood, our teens, our young adult, even in our adult, the more we are readers, which is we begin to read everything, looking for cause and effect, looking for what to do to prevent further trauma. And so it's almost like, it's almost as if we could put trauma and erratic behavior out there as trainers for reading skills. I know it's a really big stretch, but just ponder that. Just think about that. So there are 4 ways that I identified that we read, and there are more. These are just the ones I came up with, right? So the first one is environmental, in the 3rd dimension. Sort of what goes on every day on Earth, what do we interact with on a daily basis, right? So people, places, things, patterns. What are the sequencing? The sun comes up every day, the sun goes down. The moon takes a different shape and it goes in a cycle, and it's always in the same place, or it moves around a little bit. Some of the oddities, the ebb and flow. The tides go in, the tides go out. You know, I live next to the ocean, and I've never been in a place where the tide goes so far out and so far back, you know, right back in, back and forth all day long, or at least twice a day, right? Not all day long. So cause and effect, reactions. When this happens, what's going on out there? When this happens, what goes on? What does it look like when it's raining? What does it look like in the world when it's sunny? What does it look like when there's something traumatic going on globally? So it's sort of like there's an orchestra of things that talk to us, that are in sync, whether it's clouds, whether it's water, whether it's people, whether it's noise in a city, that you can start to see that there's connections between all of them. So environment is one place where we read, right? Second place is in our emotions. You know, emotions are energy in motion, and there are those of us who can read other people and go, oh wow, their face just changed. They're feeling sad. They're feeling reactive. And so we can see reactions in people. We can see cause and effects. We can see patterns. We can see manipulations. Sort of seeking what happens when we want something and we're looking around for it. What happens when we want to repel, and what is our body language, and what do people do around us? What happens when we have desire? We can sort of see and read, oh yeah, this is what he's going to do next, or this is what the child's going to do, because we can see their feelings and their curiosity and their openness, and we can watch how it interacts with everything. These are energetic changes, and we pay attention to those. And, you know, again, it can either, you know, we can watch how we can push on someone and what they do, and how we can pull on someone and what they do, or what happens when this person says something, and watch what happens with mom. Like when dad does this, what happens with mom? When I do this to my little brother, what happens here? Third way that we read is with our senses, with our eyes, with our ears, with our taste, with our smell, with what we touch, right? These are where our senses really provide information for us. And so we make associations, like that it's just giving us information. When I taste this, it brings up memories. It brings up soul memories. It brings up physical memories. It brings up sensations and connections and associations. And these are our main navigators here on Earth. So these senses are primary. And as Erin has said in the HSP book, in her books, is that the senses can really be reactive, especially if they're giving you information all the time, right? You know, and whether it's tags, whether it's texture, whether it's too many bright lights, too many loud sounds, that everything is in relationship when it comes to the senses. Okay, number 4, this one was my favorite. It's that electric energetic systems. It's almost like when you can read, it's like you see train tracks in between relationships, right? When I think this is my best pathway to it. So it's sort of a Tron mentality. It's looking at electrical currents and connections, and I'm going to call those ley lines, right? We've always heard about ley lines. It's what have we embedded as a relationship between A and B, and what are the alternative pathways to that? So it's frequency, it's capacity. People who read electronic or energetic systems, they look at what's blocked, when things are open, when they're flowing, when they are not flowing, when they are overloaded. Again, looking for patterns. This is that Tron mentality, fractals, interconnection of all sorts of pulsing frequencies, and tying it all together. So it's a systems-based awareness. I like it. It's like these 4 that I've come up with. See what else you come up with. There's going to be other areas where we're really, like how far does intuition, does it go into all 4 of those, or is it its own? Play with this a little bit. So which one are you? How do you read? How much do you read? And can you bring it all in and really focus it? And then can we, when we're reading all the time, find a way to turn it off so that we're not in overload? So the drawbacks to being a reader is that you notice all the intricacies of life, right? You notice everything. You can feel them out there, and you can feel them coming at you. You know, when it's too loud, when it's rush hour, when there's too many people talking to me, when the weather's like pouring, you know, like there's all these things that can just sort of bury, and it can turn us into it can bring up overwhelm, can turn us into hopelessness, which is I just don't know how to stop the barrage of information coming at me all the time. And you know, I'm going to really put this out there that it holds us in a victim mentality when we feel like the world is always coming at us. And it happens quite frequently when you're a good reader. Makes sense, right? Benefits are really different. I love the benefits too. You know, it's like interconnection. Visionary skills, you know, how I pull what I see out there together with where I'm at, and let my mind play with that, let things sort of fall into place. I feel like I'm prepared. I feel like I understand. I'm trying, and my biggest thing is to let go of control, which is if I can control what's going on out there, then I feel better, as opposed to just playing with it, right? Oh, if I do this, watch what happens over there. If they do that, watch what happens over there. So there's this element of, you know, interconnectedness and our ability to play and watch what happens and cause and effect. So I'm going to choose to see reading as a superpower. And the more I own it and the more I play with it, as opposed to feeling controlled or burdened by it, the better I do. So these are the kinds of things that I do in my coaching. You can check out my website, DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. There's a recording from my presentation on Evolutionary Empath Global Summit from Thursday, May 16th. And there's also some links there to the larger conference, so you can go find out what other people are saying about sensitives and empaths, and consider this concept of reading. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy yourself, and get outside and play with the world. Bye-bye.